Hey kiddos, it's your dad here. So in this video I want to talk about 10 lessons that I've learned after being retired now for 3 years. So I retired at 27 years old and achieved what's called FIRE, or financial independence, and retiring early. That is what I focused on. I didn't have a lot of money saved up when I did retire, but I was able to build my passive income up to the point where I was able to relocate out of the US. We moved to Colombia, and our income that we were bringing in through these passive methods was able to be greater than our cost of living. So that's how I was able to retire at such a young age without having a lot of money. So these are a few of the lessons that I've learned now being retired for about 3 years. It's actually been, yeah, it's been 3 years now. I retired in end of 2022, beginning 2023. 2023 is when we moved to Colombia, and now it's 2026. So here's some lessons that I've learned, and I'm going to be looking off to the side because I have some notes. So the first one was that the fear of leaving my job in the military, leaving the U.S., you know, not continuing. I had this top secret security clearance, and I was working in the D.C. area, working, doing IT work, and I had these over six-figure jobs lined up afterwards, and there was a lot of fear of like I'm going to be losing the option. Like if I don't continue this, if I don't pursue this, like they're not going to want to continue to work with me. So there was fear of the unknown. I had this stable income. I had this very reliable, stable job. I had a clear career projection. I know what my life could look like if I continued down this path, to an extent. And so there was this fear of the unknown, and I thought about this for all the time. There was just like I knew I wanted to leave. I knew I had this strong feeling like showing up to work. It really started to affect me personally. It was affecting my health, but I just felt like I just kind of have to suck it up. And that was, and the feeling just started getting more intense. So the fear was very strong. And I was trying to push it down and justify it and say, oh, well, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do that. I'll just do this. But it came to this tipping point where my health was getting seriously affected, that I said, okay, I need to do a separation. And then when we did the separation, and then the big change for me was when I found out my freedom number. So basically when there was a lot of fear around it until one day I said, okay, I'm going to put it into the spreadsheet how much it would cost to live in Maryland, where we were living at the time, how much it'd be if we moved to Florida, how much it'd be if we moved to Colombia or Japan, all these different scenarios. And when I wrote out the numbers about how much I was bringing in and how much we'd be spending, there was like it was just as clear as day, because it just said you're saving money living out of the country, because we could rent our house, we could rent both portions of the house, make more income that way. And it was just like, oh, it's clear as day now. Like I get it, like we can leave. And as soon as I saw that number, there's just this big sense of relief, and that fear subsided. And then once we were in Colombia, it was just like, okay, like this feels right. It felt right. I didn't feel that stress anymore. I didn't feel like, oh man, like I need to get this job. I need to do this thing. After I leave the military, I need to do X, Y, Z. And I still had those fears even after when we moved to Colombia. I was still, there was job options still open to me, and I was putting in some different resumes for different jobs back in Florida, and I was thinking, oh well, I could get the six-figure job here, and I can do this, and we can be making this much money, and I'll just do this for this amount of time, and I can save more money. And it was really, really, really pulling at me. So another one that I'm adding in here, it's not on my official list, but a lesson that I learned retiring early is that feeling that you had of something doesn't feel right, I need to change, is a feeling that will continue on through your life in different areas, and you can choose to ignore it or you can choose to listen to it. And when I was working in the military and I was doing this for years, I kept pushing that voice down and I kept saying, like, I'm not going to listen, I'm not going to listen. But it came to a point again, like where my health was taking effect, and I just had to start listening to that voice. And as soon as I started to listen to that voice, I felt better. But even afterwards, like that voice would come back and it'd say, like, oh, you should get this job or you have this opportunity, and that feeling would come back, and I had a lot of anxiety. All the feelings that I had before I left the military came back, even though it wasn't as intense. And it was just like, what is this anxiety? What is this feeling? And I almost caved in, and I almost followed and suppressed my feelings and just said, I'm just going to do this. I didn't, and now I feel a lot of relief, and now our life is taking this new direction, and I'm very excited, very happy, and everything does feel a lot more aligned than that fear that I was having of I need to do this thing, the safety of that thing. So that was another lesson. That's the second lesson. I guess there's 11 lessons now. Third lesson, the days are much shorter than I expected. You think that when you're not working, you'll just be able to do this. You could do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Granted, we now have, a couple kids now. Rain, River, you guys are, 2 and under 2. So it's a lot. So it's probably why the days are a bit shorter, because it almost feels like boot camp, like the military. Like, we're just get into bedtime, and then we're just getting to dinner, and then the day's over. And then there's also the structure that I create, but the days are very short. So it's like you might think, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, and sure, you could live your life like that. But for me, and this goes on to the fourth lesson, is I personally needed to create my own structure, because when I didn't have that structure, like let's say when Rain was first born, I didn't have a very clear structure, because I was just like, okay, like I'm just gonna be like a dad. I'm gonna work on my computer. I'm gonna do this, and that created a lot of tension in the home between your mom and I, about like, oh, like I'm spending too much time on the computer. So I started tracking my time, and I was like, oh no, I'm not spending a lot of time on the computer, or a lot more time. I'm doing it sporadically, and without that structure, it created stress. So having different roles of like, this the things that I'm doing is my work, or the things that I'm doing here, and then having that separation was important. The fifth, I guess this is the fifth one, is it's easy to continue making excuses for things that you don't want to do, especially when you start creating that structure. So for me, like I said, I'm going to treat this like my job. Like I have this interest. I have these things. Like right now for me, it's I'm trading, learning Japanese, and creating videos, creating content, stuff like that. So I'm treating that like my work. I have my hours that I'm doing that, and then that's it. So it's easy, very easy, at least especially for me, to continue to make excuses of like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that thing. Like I'm not going to go. Like jiu-jitsu has been kind of like a tougher thing for me. Like I've just said, oh, like I'm not going to do this because I'm working on this other thing, or like I'm not going to go work out because I'm doing this thing. So it's still, even though you have the time, it really is just a mental thing. Like even if you have the time to do it, mentally you can still be limiting, putting yourself into these like prisons, these scenarios where you feel like you can't. The sixth lesson that I learned was that fire doesn't mean retiring. It just means having sovereignty, having the ability to have control over your life. I think a lot of people, when they hear fire, they'll retire early. They just get stuck in their head, like, I don't want to sit around and do nothing all day. Like, that sounds boring. And it's not about that. Like, I don't really like the word fire because of that, retire early. To me, it's more financial independence and then living your life. Financial independence, financial independence. Um, and then having the choice. Like I'm still working on things that I want to work on though. Like I'm not sitting back and not doing anything. But like for example, yesterday, like we went to daycare. Ren's first day of daycare, and um, I just didn't work. Like I didn't do my regular thing. I just spent the entire day helping. Um, we went together and we were observing and stuff like that. So it's like I have that sovereignty, that choice to be able to say like I'm not going to work where I am. That can create its own problems of like like of like you feeling like you but again put yourself into a box. Maybe this is more a personal thing for me, like where I feel like again there's a guilt associated with not working or not trying to actively pursue goals. So I do end up creating my own prison sometimes for stuff like that. But overcoming that mental hurdle, the obstacle, and just allowing that freedom, which is the gift of being financially independent. Um, that's a great benefit. Um, so there's a lot of years of mental conditioning that keep you trapped, like in your own prison. Number seven, my job also became just managing money. Before when I was working, like I remember there was some months where we were spending probably equal amount that I was bringing in per month, just spending it on like Amazon, eating out, a lot of money on Amazon. So now, especially because like we're in Colombia and shipping and Amazon, there's just not as there's not as many options for the things that you can get, and we're also spending a lot less. We're more conscious of the money, and also a lot more conscious of like what we're spending money on when we go out to eat. It's just like, ooh, these prices are getting expensive, even in Colombia. Um, so being mindful of that, managing it, trying not, before I would just spend money willy nilly and just whatever I want to get, I just get it. Now I'm a bit more, I stop and I think about what is being spent. Whereas before, like I just spend all this money because it's just like okay, like I know even more money's coming in next month, and it became like a hamster wheel. Um, the eighth lesson to that is I spend a lot less money. So yeah, I spend a lot less money than I used to, and that's fine. And I actually feel good spending less. I feel like I have less tied. It was a big part of I think that fear was like all of this accumulation, all this stuff that I had. We had this house and we had momentums and clothes and all these things that we spend all these thousands of dollars on, and then like what do you do with it? What do you do with it? Put it in the attic? Haven't thought about it really that much since. Every once in a while we're just like, oh yeah, I think that's in the attic, but it doesn't really affect our lives. Number nine, yeah, everything feels more expensive. Also, everything does feel a lot more expensive. Where again, before, um, it wasn't even really a thought. It was just like I'll buy it, we'll buy it. Um, now just more mindful of it. Um, Number 10, this one was pretty eye opening, and this was that location, the idea of like oh like as long as I have the time, it doesn't matter where I can be. So some people are like, oh, I'm just gonna move out, to the middle of Spain, or I'm just gonna move to Colombia in this cheap, super super cheap area. We did that. Like we moved to Colombia to a really cheap area, dirt cheap. Well, not dirt cheap, but it was very cheap. It was like a couple $100 a month. It was um, your mother-in-law's my mother-in-law's house, my mother-in-law's house. That it was kind of outside of the city. It was in a very more like Venezuelan heavy. Like it was where working people that go into the city typically work. So um, I would live there, and at first it was fine, but then it was just like, okay, like this location has really taken a toll on us. Like we're feeling more angry, we're stressed out. The people in the area, it was more dirty, it was more rough, and it was just like, man, like I wake up and I feel great because it's like we can do what we want, but then at the same time, it didn't really feel like we could do what we want because we weren't living in an area that felt aligned with us. So that was a really big realization of just how important location is. So now we live in a place that's four time, you know, four times more expensive. Um, four times more expensive. It's like about 1,000 a month. Living in a new city, so it's not cold anymore. We live in Medellin, so nicer weather, nicer temperature. The people are nicer. Um, so we just feel a lot better. Like we don't have that stress that we did when we were living. So um, location really deeply affects it, and thinking about that now, I was just kind of thinking about that now. Yeah, location also like what you're doing. Like if you're working with people that is causing you this stress, if you're living in an area that you don't want to be living in, doing something that you don't want to be doing, with people that you don't like, and it's tough for me, and I felt guilty about it because it was just for me, I tried to think about that. I try to find peace wherever I'm at, and try to be grateful for the life that we're living, and I had those feelings, but it was just like the constant weathering, and the traffic, and the way that people were driving, and on all these things. It was just like really kind of like digging into me, and digging into the both of us to the point where it's just like we felt like angry, and that didn't feel natural or good. And as soon as we moved, as soon as we left Bogota, the city where we're living, we just felt so much better. Um, so yeah, location, environment deeply affects. And then number 11, building skills is still essential, and that's why I say I don't like the retire early part of FIRE. Um, you know, I'm still working. I'm still like for me, um, like my interest right now is trading and learning Japanese, and us moving to Japan, and that whole process. But like for me, I'm just building the skill of trading, and like that excites me of saying like this is something that I'm gonna work on. I'm gonna get better. You know, I'm gonna I feel that there's really something that I'm working towards, and that feels good. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna watch anime or watch TV, watch YouTube all day, or I'm just gonna work out and do this thing and do that thing. Like no, like I'm actively working towards something, so it still feels like an adventure. It doesn't feel like the end destination. I don't feel like I've reached the end. I feel like I'm just in the beginning. Um, so so yeah, it's been this has been and I don't want to say like it doesn't, like there's not times where, like there's still some times where I'm just like, oh well, what if that feeling of like what if I did this, or what if I did this, um that feeling can come back, and that was a really big one that I had to learn, is that feeling is always going to be there of like, well, what, but is of that feeling of like, oh well, I could just go and do this thing, and do something that maybe I don't really want to do, but it would set me up. um, that feeling still comes back. I think the most recent one was I had a certification, like Security Plus, and Security Plus that was expiring, a couple certifications, a couple CompTIA IT certifications, and I was just like I had it in my calendar that it was going to be expiring. So in my head, I was thinking, oh, I've got to do this certification. I've got to do this certification if I want to keep it active, in case I want to be able to get a job doing this type of thing. And it was just like I felt that knot inside me of like, you don't want to do continuing education, you don't want to take this test and do these things, like why? But and then I saw the calendar date coming closer and closer, and I felt that anxiety. I went to the website and I was looking up the how much it'd be for recertifying and doing the continuing education credits. And then the day passed. I got the email that it said it expired, and I felt fine. But there was a lot of anxiety for years. I was thinking about that of like, oh man, like, you know, my top secret clearance is ending. My certificates are ending. I've got this bigger work gap in my work history. But then it passed, and I felt fine. Um, so yeah, those are some lessons that I hope help you in case I get hit by a bus and can't tell you directly. So.